I think one thing that's also fundamental to people who are ultimately successful is that they're looking forward, not looking backwards. Most of what's useful for people to read from you are things that you just figured out. Look, what do I really have to say that hasn't been said before? Probably nothing. But it doesn't matter that I don't need to be the first person to say this. Everybody eventually learns this thing, but they have to learn it from someone. So today, they're going to learn it from me.
Welcome to Trailblazers, the podcast where we sit down with contrarian tech leaders who found conventional success in unconventional ways. Today on the show, I am so thrilled to be joined by Haseeb Qureshi. Haseeb is the managing partner at Dragonfly, a multi-billion-dollar leading crypto VC firm, and is a long-time technology-focused crypto investor. He was previously a general partner at Metastable Capital, which has since been acquired by Dragonfly. Earlier in his career, Haseeb founded a stablecoin startup, worked as a blockchain engineer at Earn.com, which was acquired by Coinbase, and served as an anti-fraud engineer at Airbnb. Before entering tech, he was among the top heads-up, no-limit hold'em poker players in the world, becoming a sponsored professional and self-made millionaire by age 19. He later authored a best-selling poker book, donated the bulk of his poker earnings, about $500,000 to charity, and pursued an earn-to-give path that led him into software engineering and eventually blockchain, which we will discuss for those who don't know what the earn-to-give path is. Haseeb has taught a Web3 entrepreneurship course at UC Berkeley and is widely followed for his technical expertise in crypto. Today, he continues to write, invest, and contribute to the ecosystem while committing a third of his pre-tax income to charitable causes. Let's welcome Haseeb.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. What a bio.
Yeah, it's weird to hear it read to your face like that, but thank you. That's very generous of you.
We do it very intentionally. I love watching people sit there and hear it because I feel like someone like you, you've had quite a career, which we'll get into, very multidimensional, and you don't always reflect on what's been. Like, you're obviously so deep in Dragonfly land right now and focused on that, but it's important to talk about where you come from and, you know, holistically look at where you've been.
That's true. It is a trap you can fall into, which is to start building this monument of yourself in your head. And, you know, I think it is healthy to look back and to internalize, who am I? Where did I come from? What did I do that got me to where I am? But I think one thing that's also fundamental to people who are ultimately successful is that they're looking forward, not looking backwards.
Absolutely.
So that's something that I've always taken away. It is maybe one of my failings is that maybe I'm a little bit too forward looking and I don't stop to like enjoy the scenery. I was just talking to a friend about that, you know, we're just, you know, we just raised a new fund. And I remember the last time that we raised a new fund, it felt so celebratory because it was such a big moment for us. It was really a step up for what we had as a firm. This time, I don't think I've celebrated at all in this fundraise. And I think it's just part of my personality is that I'm very, you know, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? And maybe I could do better to stop and, you know, smell the flowers.
Yeah, but I think being action-oriented leads to your success, so you can't have one without the other a lot of the time.
It's part of it.
And
Definitely
do you feel like the lack of celebration is just, it just happened, so we haven't done it yet? Or is it a market thing? Like, when I think about when you raised your last fund, crypto was in a different state. It's still not, it's actually in a different state now.
Yeah.
You know, we've kind of had a bear market overall for a couple of years, but things have been really bouncing back recently. So what's the reason for the lack of celebration this time around?
I think so in our last fund was the first fund that we really became institutional. So we had a bunch of big institutional, you know, university endowments and big players that, you know, I could tell my parents and they'd know who they are. And that felt like such an enormous validation that I wasn't sure we were going to get as a firm. This go around, I sort of felt like, okay, I know that we're going to raise the fund. I know that we're going to get that institutional validation. So it didn't surprise me that we raised the fund. I guess the other element of it is that it's just been such an exhausting few years in the crypto industry. Going from the highs that we saw in 2021, 2022, and the post-COVID boom to the collapse of, you know, Luna and FTX and the real valley of darkness as an industry that crypto went through, to then emerge from that, it's kind of, there's not the same kind of juvenile excitement about like, oh my God, we did it. We raised a real fund about crypto. It's like, of course we raised it. What else do you expect to do? I think the feeling is just a little bit It's just a little bit different. But I'd say it's also part of my personality because one of the things that people close to me know about me is that I hate birthday celebration. Like for myself, I do not like people to celebrate my birthday.
Okay, let's get into that. There's like a psychological
There's
thing
definitely
there.
a psychological thing.
Yeah,
It's not just like, oh, I'm successful. It's definitely like a thing. And so within Dragonfly, it's kind of a thing that people will be like, okay, but we're actually gonna celebrate his birthday. And I'm like, no, I'm serious. Do not celebrate my birthday, to the point where I actually last year, so every year around my birthday, there's a big conference in Singapore called Token 2049. It's like one of the biggest conferences in the world in crypto.
Yeah.
And
I didn't know it was in Singapore every year though.
It's in Singapore. Well, they have there's one in Dubai, there's one in London.
Okay,
but
that's
Singapore is the
what I'm
biggest.
thinking of.
Singapore is the biggest.
Okay.
And it's like the biggest event in Asia. It's possibly the biggest conference in the world in crypto, just raw numbers who are there. And so we go every year. And I last year I timed my flight, because it's like a 16-hour flight to get to Singapore from the US nonstop. I timed my flight that my birthday I was on a plane so that nobody could throw me a surprise party while I was on the plane.
So it's not even like you are neutral. You really don't like
I actively
celebration.
do not want you to celebrate my birthday. So my thing is, and people have argued with me about this very vociferously, which is that I like to be celebrated for things that I've done. So if I've accomplished something, if I've like really, like if I did something worth celebrating, then awesome. I actually want to be celebrated for that. Whereas like a birthday, I feel like that's like that is like the universal participation trophy.
Everyone gets one.
Yeah, everybody gets one every year. It's like, oh, we forgot about you all this year, but today we remember you. And I'm kind of like, I have nothing against that in principle, but I feel like I don't want that. I don't need that.
Okay, I have a reframe. Ready?
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to change your life, and now you're celebrating your birthdays every year moving forward. Get ready.
Let's do it. Okay, I'm ready.
So let's say you're turning, we'll give a number, like someone turns 60.
Yeah.
Okay? This is an opportunity to celebrate all the little moments from the past year. So it's not about that one day. I get the universal participation trophy thing, I do.
Yeah.
But what about celebrating the good stuff and the not so good stuff? Because I think you're someone, and we'll get into this later, but I think you are particularly vulnerable and open in a way that a lot of folks are not. And especially as an investor, you sort of share the wins, you share the lows, you're very open about your background. I think that's extremely unique and extremely special. What about viewing your birthday as like the year you look at the good, the bad, the ugly, and you wrap it in a bow and you move on to the next? So it's not about like, wow, I'm 1 year older and this is something I didn't achieve, I just get to be. It's more reflection on the past year and viewing it more as like I'm projecting how I think about it, but more
that's a very healthy way to internalize a birthday. I don't think
versus like it's about me.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's more about the year and what I did well, what I didn't do well, and I want the next year to be even better and even better.
Yeah. So I think having a period of time for reflecting on what you've done every year, I do that. I don't do that on my birthday.
It's like New Year's for you or something.
Yeah, yeah. Usually it is around the end of the year.
Yeah.
So usually around the end of the year, I'll often do a silent meditation retreat. And that time, so I'm going to be doing one in about 2 weeks, and right before Christmas. It's like a 5-6 day retreat, and that time is a sort of, whether you want to or not, you're going to do that on a silent retreat. And for me, that doesn't really align with what a birthday feels like. A birthday feels like you invite your friends, they throw a party, they get you gifts, they embarrass you, and then it's like, oh, it's great, and you just have a big party. Birthdays, I think here's where I will defend birthdays, is I think around big transitions, right? So like when you turn 40, when you turn 50, when you turn 60, and obviously these are arbitrary dates, like the universe or your biology doesn't know that you're 40. It knows you're older, but like 40 is not a magical date for your biology. But for your psychology and for your culture, it is, right? 40, like I'm going to turn 40 in not too long future from now. And I know that it's going to be a weird day. Like I can already stare down the barrel of that gun the same way that when I turned 30, I was like, oh, my 20s are over. And that has such a deep cultural resonance. That does feel like a birthday is the right time, because it is really about other people. Like a birthday is not really about you, it's about other people. Because otherwise, that's why you're inviting all these people to come and like observe me and celebrate me together with me. That I feel like is the best reason to have a birthday. It's almost like having a retirement party. for your
Totally.
for like your
It's a
decade.
transition.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone that's listening that's friends with you in real life, throw
Yeah.
you giant surprise parties every
They
decade.
all know. They
every
all
decade.
know. Do not. Okay, maybe at the end of the decade.
Yeah.
But they know if they do that,
You
I'm
get
like,
permission.
yeah, on just like a random year, I'm like, dude, you're dead to me if you do that.
That's so funny. Okay, so we are on opposite ends of the spectrum. I love celebrating quarter birthdays and like half birthdays.
Really?
I'm like
Wow.
crazy because I'm someone where
Just a party animal.
I'm a party. I just love celebrating and gratitude and any excuse to make the day a little more special. I'm game.
That
So
is
like
really
I'm even
healthy.
the person who orders like a new drink just to like have a fun thing I did that day. So I think, and listen, they both work. We're on other ends of the spectrum. You got to find your way. But yeah, it's refreshing to hear your point of view on that. It's interesting. I'm learning a
Is
lot
that
about you.
refreshing? Okay,
It
all
is.
right.
Listen, birthdays, you never know what we're going to talk about.
That's true.
Okay, so I want to get into our icebreaker question. We've already been chatting for a bit, but
Yeah.
we do ask all our guests this question. I know they'll be mad if I don't ask you.
Okay.
Because I think you in particular will have a very interesting answer. So on the podcast, we don't just talk about the professional stuff. We talk about the personal stuff too, and not just the fun wins, but also the hard paths. So again, this is kind of a meaty question, and you can take it whatever direction you want, but what's been the hardest part of your journey so far? The part that almost broke you and you weren't sure if you were going to, make it through that moment.
The hardest part of my journey. There were a lot of hard moments, and I'd say, being in this industry in particular, crypto is a
journey every
particularly
day.
hard one. It's a journey every day. So we were. So this is an episode that I think came to light relatively recently. We were investors into a company called Tornado Cash. Tornado Cash, they are a privacy protocol on Ethereum. If you don't know what that means, it doesn't really matter, but they allow you as an individual to get financial privacy when you're interacting with the blockchain. And this company, founded by this guy, he's a American citizen who used to work at Amazon. Him and his co-founders were both in Russia. They built this thing in a hackathon. It was an early project funded by Ethereum grants, and they eventually raised some money, and we were their first investors as venture capitalists. Known this guy for many years, a good friend. He ended up getting indicted. And
How long ago was this?
This was 2022, I think, late 22, like end of 22. He ended up getting indicted. Well, I think actually, no, sort of 22. The protocol was sanctioned by OFAC. OFAC is the Office of Foreign Asset Control that basically does sanctions on foreign parties. It was the first time that OFAC had ever sanctioned a non-person. It sanctioned the smart contracts, which turns out that is not within their remit to sanction a smart contract. You can't do that. It's just code. And so that actually got overturned in the courts as being beyond the jurisdiction of OFAC. But that was the first thing that happened. And then the three of them were indicted. And of course, Roman, being an American, he was arraigned and then put on trial in New York. This was probably one of the biggest trials in the crypto industry over the last year. It took place just earlier this year. It was a very, very long time coming because the court process takes a long time. And so this was a very, very political case. The reason why he ended up getting indicted was because in 2022, North Korea hacked a protocol in crypto called Ronin. And they hacked this protocol for like $600 million. And they used the protocol that Roman made to hide the money that they had hacked. And now the protocol that Roman made, it's kind of like Signal or something, right? Like, anybody can use Signal. And Signal doesn't control who uses it. It doesn't have any, it's just technology, right? And so the Department of Justice decided that they felt that Roman was complicit. He was part of a conspiracy with North Korea to create this technology and blah, blah, blah. Now, this is kind of obviously absurd, but crypto was so politicized after the collapse of FTX and after the Biden administration decided that heads needed to roll for everything that had happened and the ways in which this was just so embarrassing to the American government that this happened on their watch. And so they went after Roman. Now, he was kind of a cause celeb within the crypto industry. Like the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which is a defender of civil liberties online, they contributed to Roman's defense. a bunch of companies within crypto, like millions of dollars were raised by just individuals for his defense. We were his seed investor.
And you were his friend.
And I was his friend.
Yeah.
We were also threatened in open court in the course of this case as potentially also having criminal liability for having invested into Tornado Cash. So, we were subpoenaed by the DOJ, we were interviewed, and they sort of waved in front of us the idea that they might also go after us. Now, all of this did not happen. Turns out they were mostly bluffing and they were just kind of trying to scare us. But going through this process, one of the things that I knew from the very beginning of my time when I first got into crypto is understanding that crypto is intrinsically political in the same way that the internet was intrinsically political, right? I mean, the internet itself was something that countries all over the world have pushed back on. The idea that we went from a world where everybody, if you want to reach the masses, that was ultimately controlled by the government before the advent of the internet, right? If you wanted to get on the airwaves, if you wanted to get on television, that was ultimately regulated by the FCC. And the FCC controlled what kind of messages you could send, how family friendly you could be, whether you could curse, whether you could show homosexuality. All of these things were controlled by the government. And with the advent of the internet, that completely changed. All of society changed, right? Crypto is the same kind of thing, except now instead of information, it's happening to money. And that is political. There is no way to avoid the political consequences of what crypto fundamentally is. That's where it all came from. And so I knew that intellectually.
In theory.
But I didn't feel it. The first time that I really felt it was when going through all of this and seeing that happening to my friend Roman.
Wow.
That was probably the hardest thing because it's also very fresh. I was watching the case going on earlier this year. Now the case, to kind of jump to the ending of that story.
Yeah.
It ended up, he was brought up on 3 charges: conspiracy to commit money laundering, conspiracy for what's it called? There's a money transmission laws, violating money transmission laws, and there was one more. I forget what it was. Whatever. There's like these different conspiracy charges.
Yeah.
The most serious one was money laundering, and the least serious one was the money transmission. Right. So unlicensed money transmission. On the 2 most serious charges, for which he faced 20 years in prison, there was a hung jury. And on the least serious charge, he was convicted, which was the anti-money laundering violation, which is kind of more of a kind of ticky-tack foul. He's appealing, and I think it's very likely he's going to prevail on appeal because it's kind of a bullshit charge. And he's still, very much everybody in the crypto industry is at his back and is continuing to support him. But seeing the way in which, the history of this technology, the history of all this stuff, started with the cypherpunks. The cypherpunks were these people who believed that financial freedom should really live with individuals. They're very, very strong libertarian impulse is that human beings have the right to privacy, they have the right to encryption, and they have the right to having financial freedom and not having somebody looking over their shoulder all the time about what they're doing and how they're spending their money, provided that they're staying within the bounds of the law. And the cypherpunks, they were famously doing this through civil disobedience, right? At the time that the cypherpunks were first starting, this is where Bitcoin was created, was on the cypherpunk mailing forum in 2008. The cypherpunks, at the time, there was the same people who fought against the fact that encryption was illegal in the 90s. And they, through acts of civil disobedience, so the RSA algorithm, you can write it in about 4 lines of Perl code. And this was illegal in the 90s. Encryption was a munition, according to the DoD, and therefore it could not be exported. You could not freely encrypt stuff above a certain level of bit complexity because that was considered to be, militarily dangerous. And this was fought through civil disobedience of people saying, no, I'm going to publish the RSA algorithm. And people were wearing it on T-shirts. They were publishing it as their email signatures. And this led to a very famous court case where the court ultimately overturned the ruling that encryption was just math. You cannot make math illegal, right? The same thing is true for Tornado Cash. Tornado Cash is just code. It's just, ZK knowledge. It's the exact same principles. You cannot make that illegal. And that's what this appeals court ended up finding about the OFAC restrictions. And I think that's ultimately going to be the finding that happens in the appeals case for Tornado Cash. So I did not consider myself to be a part of that tradition. Like I knew who they were. I had read about them. Obviously you pay your homage of like, look, these people made everything possible for the world that we all live in. And I came to appreciate that, like, look, if you want to be a part of this industry, you kind of have to play your part. And so,
what a crazy experience.
I've learned so much.
You're still probably processing a lot of it. I mean, I think we talk about in our industry how exciting it is to invest in frontier technologies and to back these brilliant entrepreneurs, but that often comes at the price of, once in a while, a court case like this, or really pushing back on government or the law and really having these very sticky, painful situations.
Yeah.
What's your take on sort of like the future of crypto and legal intersection? Like, I think that's one thing people always joke, like technology moves way faster than the pace of the law. And so any great business starts with breaking the law is another thing, you hear a lot too.
Yeah.
But then things like this happen and good people like Roman get caught up in this. And you obviously as just an investor, what does the future look like? How do we prevent something like this from happening again? And I will just make a little note here for folks who aren't as up to speed on crypto. The Telegram founder had something also happen to him.
That's
I'm not
right.
sure. Yeah, I'm sure you know about that. But, similarly, like everyone knows Telegram or Messenger, you're just communicating. It's the platform with which, things are trespassing. You yourself often are not responsible and shouldn't be responsible. So what does the future look like for us? How do we prevent these more innocent folks from getting swept up in the political and maybe legal ramifications?
I think the answer is that it's always going to be a push and pull.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you see the same thing happening now in the EU. You saw the same thing in the UK about trying to force backdoors on encryption. Right. So the idea that, okay, your Signal messages, your WhatsApp messages, the government, as all governments do, want power. Individuals want to retain that power. Right. And this has always been the social contract.
Always.
That like we think that this is ancient history, but it's not. It's happening today. It's happening right now. And that negotiation of power, in America, because we're a very stable place, we have great rule of law, we have wonderful institutions, we have this sense of like, well, the social contract was figured out by somebody else, and now I'm inheriting that social contract. And the reality is that that social contract is constantly renegotiated. It's constantly renegotiated. The only way in which you're not going to renegotiate it is if you, the citizen, fall asleep at the wheel and let the government decide for itself what it is going to take and what it's not going to take, right? America was born out of a disagreement about the social contract. It was born out of a disagreement that like, hey, King of England, you are taking too much power that you did not legitimately get from the governed. And they said, you know what, you've taken so much, screw you, we're out, we're going to create a different system of government. But that negotiation of power continues to take place within the American government. And what causes those renegotiations of power? Almost always, it's technology. So insofar as we are investing into and learning about all these new technologies, these new technologies create new grounds to renegotiate that contract. So take crypto aside. What is AI going to do to the social contract, right? Think about AI. First of all, you have the right to a judge, a jury, and how is that going to change when AIs are determined to be more fair than judges, more fair than juries? AIs don't get grumpy. AIs, maybe they're racist by default. Maybe if you prompt them the right way, train them in the right way, maybe they'll be less racist than judges are.
Or what if AI breaks the law?
What if AI
who's held accountable?
Who's to blame? Exactly.
Yeah.
What if an AI wants to control money? How do AIs get taxed? What if AIs start becoming productive members of society? How is all this stuff going to work?
The tax stuff is wild.
Yeah, exactly. We have right now a system of government that is designed for humans only. We have no concept. Basically, we have humans, we have companies. But we have no ability to process what does it mean for an AI to be a member of society. So all these things, just in the same way the internet did, right? The internet had to change how we think about copyright law, how we think about free speech, how we think about the rights to use public airwaves. All of these things had to be changed in response to the way in which this technology redrew the playing field. And if you don't pay attention, you let somebody else fight the fight for you, well, the person fighting the fight is either going to be the company or it's going to be the government itself. And if you look at different countries around the world, well, you realize that, they come up with very different answers, right? If you just let the government run with it, you get China. You get all these sorts of places where civil liberties are curtailed in favor of the government.
Yeah. So interesting. This is the beauty, I think, not just of technology, but of crypto in particular, is how deeply philosophical it is.
That's right.
And I know you're such an avid writer, which is really cool. I'd love if you could just share your process with people. I mean, we're having a very interesting conversation now when you have these thoughts like, okay, we had humans and companies, and now we have humans, companies, and AI. What's your process for crystallizing your own thinking and sharing that with the world?
The process for crystallizing my own thinking. I mean,
and specifically the writing, because you do a lot of public sharing.
Yeah.
And I always find, I mean, I do as well, but I find it so interesting to hear how people get to their ideas. So
most of my ideas, I feel like, come from conversations that I'm having with people. And very often, the principle I generally advocate is that most of what's useful for people to read from you are things that you just figured out. If you just figured it out, like 10 minutes ago, then it's very fresh in your mind. You know exactly what path it took you to get to that realization. Whereas if it's something you've believed for many, many years, very often you're inventing a path that maybe seems like it makes more sense, but it's not the real path you took. So when something you've just freshly learned it, you are in the best position to teach other people the thing that is actually truly convincing to you. And second, it crystallizes that learning for you. And because you just arrived at it, very likely it's timely. It's something of the moment that's going to be interesting to other people. And so that's why I find that when I've just changed my mind about something, or I've just realized something that I didn't realize before, that almost always is a sign that, I should write about this, because it's going to be helpful to other people.
I love that. I think some people force themselves to make those connections, like you said, about their past, but then they don't spend enough time thinking about the day-to-day, and often that is enough of the meat. Who do you feel like you write for? Because I think that's also a big part of it. If you're sharing the stuff that you just learned, that just clicked, often it means you're writing for the people that are just behind you.
Yeah.
Maybe they're like a couple conversations away from having that click for them as well, or you're articulating something that they've known for some time but didn't know how to put together.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think about who you write for, or do you just write the things that you find interesting and hope they reach whoever they do?
It's both. Sometimes I'm just writing things that just click for me, and I'm writing for whoever's right behind me. And I think that's usually the right answer. Usually the right answer is that don't try to take on this enormous task of writing for everybody in the world, because there are very few things that everybody in the world is ready or interested to hear from you. But the people who are right behind you, they want to know because they're going to be right there very soon, right? So one thing that I've been doing since basically forever is writing about things that I'm learning. And sometimes what I'm learning is at the very cutting edge, right? So right now I'm in crypto. I'm really one of the most knowledgeable people in the world about crypto, because I've been doing this full time for so many years in a space that not that many people have. That being said, earlier on in my development, when I was first learning about crypto, I was also writing about crypto, and then I was not very knowledgeable, but I was more knowledgeable than the people who were right behind me. And I could explain what I was learning as somebody who'd come from the tech industry into crypto in a way that was going to make sense to somebody from the tech industry, because that's the way that it clicked for me. So now that didn't click for everyone, but the people who were right behind me, they were like, oh, wow, Haseeb, that totally makes sense to me now. And so the thing that I find many people struggle with when it comes to writing is they second guess themselves because they believe, look, what do I really have to say that hasn't been said before?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer that I've always given to that question is probably nothing. But it doesn't matter that I don't need to be the first person to say this, because everybody eventually learns this thing, but they have to learn it from someone. So today they're going to learn it from me. Anybody who doesn't already know this is going to learn it from me. And if, they didn't already know it, I might be the person that makes this click for them, even if they read it before, because they're similarly situated to where I am. I learned this thing in a way that, I don't know, some lesson about writing, right? Okay, how much ink has been spilled on writing? God knows, it's been one of the oldest things that anybody's ever done is written. So what do I have to say? What do I have to add to the oeuvre of all the things about writing? But somebody who's also, in the tech industry, who's also on Twitter, who's also learning about these things, they read what I have to say about my writing process, and it clicks for them. It's like, oh, wait, that can make sense for me.
I love that. And also, not everyone has your same exact background. Like, I think to hear about tips for writing from a crypto person
Yeah.
is very different than hearing tips for writing from a nonfiction author. Like,
That's right.
you have a very unique intersection, every person does, of interests. So you have to also think about it through that lens of like, it's not just writing, it's writing as someone who runs a fund, has been an avid investor in technology, knows crypto, all that stuff.
Yeah.
On Trailblazers, we spotlight founders who succeed by doing things differently, not by following the playbook, but by rewriting it. Many of those unconventional builders and the VCs backing them run on Brex because it helps them scale with speed and focus. From smart corporate cards and high-yield banking to AI-powered expense management, Brex gives startups the financial stack they need from day one so they can spend more time building and less time managing back-office operations. More than 30,000 companies, from breakout startups like Anthropic and Cursor to global leaders like DoorDash and Plaid, trust Brex to help them spend smarter and move faster. That's why we, as a venture firm and also the podcast, run on Brex too. Sign up at brex.com/trailblazerspod to get started and claim exclusive rewards. That's brex.com/TRAILBLAZERSPOD. RocketReach is the leading sales and lead intelligence solution trusted by sales, marketing, recruiting, and business development teams to grow their businesses. Whether you're looking for a developer halfway around the world, a C-level executive in New York, or a potential investor in Silicon Valley, we connect you directly. With RocketReach, you can easily access the most comprehensive, accurate compilation of emails and phone numbers on Earth. That puts you in front of the right people faster and backs you up with a database that reaches across industries, markets, and titles, using AI to continually improve the quality of your contacts. With RocketReach, you can reach anyone so you can reach higher. Many of you know I love cold outreach. It's been the root of many of my success so far, and this is the tool that I've used the whole time. Trailblazer listeners get 15% off any plan at rocketreach.co/trailblazers. That's rocketreach.co/trailblazers. I wanted to ask you about a quote that I read that someone shared with you that had a big impact on you that I think about a lot, and I'd love your take on it. So I know with the first firm you were at, you worked with Naval, who's very famous. He's very big online for those who are, watching and don't know who he is. Check him out. He shares a lot of tidbits. And he shared this with you. He said, in investing, the terminology, reading term sheets, how to price deals, that's all easy to learn. It's not easy, or what do you say? That's all easy to learn. Yeah, it's not easy, but it's easy to learn. It's judgment that's the hard part, and nobody can teach you judgment. So how do you think about improving your own judgment? And as someone who, you said this yourself, knows more about crypto than most, you've been in this business for maybe 6, 7, 8 years now, if not longer. How do you improve your own judgment, and how do you make sure you stay on top of it and seeing more of the unconventional things that everyone else might be missing?
So judgment is one of these things that I think there's two parts of judgment. One part of judgment is just background knowledge, right? So if you don't have enough data points, you haven't seen enough founders and what they do, you haven't seen enough breakups, you haven't seen enough exits, you haven't seen enough business models, pricing models, all these different things, then that is going to just give you better priors and more calibrated posteriors when you're trying to guess what's going to happen when these two people come together and target this market, right? So a lot of that, you could be a brilliant person with great judgment in other contexts, but if you just don't have enough raw data, you're not going to be able to predict very well, is this startup going to be successful? So part of that input into judgment is just data. The other part of that input into judgment is, I think, really just being able to think fluidly and clearly in difficult and uncertain situations. And that comes in part from practice, but I think a lot of it is, it seems to me like a lot of it is actually very difficult to learn. A lot of it seems to me like something that either you have or you don't. So this is something that, I used to be a professional poker player. And in poker, it's just very obvious that there's a limit to how much better people get at being able to control their emotions, think very clearly through a stressful situation. There are people who become really, really good at this with experience. And there's people that no matter how much they play, there's just a wall that they can't get over, where when somebody goes all in and there's a high stakes situation, they'll never not freak out. And now, people are, that's not to say that people can't get better. Everybody can get better with more experience. But it's just very clear, with the same number of hours on the basketball court, some people are going to become Michael Jordan and some people are going to become me. So there's it's like anything else. It's a skill or a muscle that has some amount of nature and some amount of nurture. So I think judgment is like that. Being able to see clearly your own biases, being able to see clearly when you're being emotional, being able to clearly acknowledge to yourself when you're wrong and when it's time to reevaluate ideas that you've already held. These are things that come somewhat easily to certain people, very easily to certain people, and very rarely to other people.
And how do you do that? How do you surround yourself? Is it having people give you that feedback? Is it having enough time with yourself to think, okay, did that go well? Did that not go well? Am I missing something here? How do you have those reflection moments,
I think a lot of it comes from, so one, you want to remove distortions as much as you can. A lot of the reason why people fool themselves is because it's advantageous to fool themselves. And you want to make sure that all of the incentives in your environment are conspiring for you to clearly see the truth. And for most people, this is actually quite difficult because most people think that their incentive overall is to seem more successful than they are. And so they will tell their partners, their co-GPs, their employees, things are going great. Everything is great. I made great investments. Or they need to tell their LPs, I'm doing great. I have all great investments. All my companies are killing it. And if you think that this is your incentive, then your brain is very smart. Your brain is very good at responding to incentives. And it will say, great, I will look for reasons to believe that this is true. And I will interpret all the data I'm getting from all my senses to make this true. If instead you are convinced that the most important thing for you to be successful is to clearly see the truth, is to actually see through the matrix and understand what about this company didn't go well and what about this company is going well and what decisions did I made that could have been better. If you're constantly looking for that and you really believe that by seeing the matrix, that's the thing that's going to make you long-term successful, that's how you end up getting there. So some of that is about your own emotions, and that part is genuinely hard. But some of that is really about environment. And I think more than anything, if you're at, I don't know, just pick on a firm. Let's say you're at SoftBank. If you're at SoftBank, it's a big organization. And, it's not like you eat what you kill. It's very, it's much more political than would be, a small firm where you're a solo GP or where you're, the small group of GPs. In a place like that, it is so warping of your incentives to clearly see the truth and to name reality and be able to change your mind. And that's why I think the best investors, actually, it doesn't scale very well. It tends to be small tribes of people who have very, very high trust environment with each other and are actually able to fully acknowledge we made a bad decision.
And there's no ego there as much as possible. You lower the
Exactly.
ego and you care more about the actual truth versus the success.
That's
Now, here's the thing that everyone throws around. We'll use Elon Musk as the ultimate example.
Yeah.
A very wealthy person who surrounds themselves with people who are incentivized to say yes to them because they want to stay around that wealthy person. And this is a common thing I hear a lot when, you and I have to hang out with very wealthy people to raise money, right?
Yeah.
That this is something that they struggle with. How do you know if the people around you really have your best interest at heart or just want to be around you because you have access and network and connections?
Yeah.
And therefore, you cannot see the truth. Your judgment is, cloudy because of that. So as you get more successful, and you're an interesting person to ask this to, how do you make sure that you have the right people around you and that you are still so focused on the truth when actually not your own incentives aren't misaligned, but the people around you have misaligned incentives to stay close to you and tell you yes?
Yeah. That is what it means to have your incentives misaligned.
Yeah.
That everybody around you is
right.
given
Even
the wrong
that is
incentives.
misaligned. Yeah.
Exactly. So I would say, first, it's very fundamental to how you build a team and how you hire, that you make sure that people get rewarded for speaking the truth, not for self-congratulating, not for, puffing themselves up. And in fact, that kind of puffery actually gets punished, right? The more that you do that, the more you will cultivate this clear thing that look, this is a search for truth. We are actually trying to get the right answer. We are not trying to make our answer seem like the right answer. We're trying to actually get the right answer. That I think is very fundamental, especially in a space that's as noisy and as difficult to perceive as crypto. The second thing I think is that you have to also just acknowledge that you are never going to fully get there. power is always distortive. Always, 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 right? I think I am a pretty, cold, rational, very, very willing to acknowledge my mistakes, much more so than most people I know. But even for me, it's very obvious to me that the incentives of people around me within Dragonfly, or even outside of Dragonfly, just people who meet me, their incentive is not to tell me the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Their incentive is not to tell me where I'm fucking up. Their incentive is not to tell me when, hey, Haseeb, you kind of went too hard on this thing, or really you kind of, you sort of rubbed me the wrong way when you said this thing. They're not going to tell you that, especially if you're perceived as powerful. And so the most important thing is for you to yourself be vigilant where other people are not, and to intentionally cultivate and reward people giving you that kind of feedback, because they will not on their own, right? I mean, this is something that we've all had to learn lately now with the rise of LLMs, is that with LLMs do this like to 11, like you tell an LLM anything and it's like, you're great and you totally had the right side and you're such an awesome person. Yeah. And so you have to actually prompt your LLM, give me really harsh, honest feedback. I've one thing I often advise founders when they're going to go have a tough conversation, or when they're going to give a speech or whatever that's high stakes, is I will tell them, look, turn on ChatGPT voice mode and practice with ChatGPT, but make sure you prompt it to be very critical, because otherwise it's going to be like, oh, that's great, you did such a good job. But even still,
being critical, it doesn't really hit the full.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not really unbiased.
That's right.
Thank you for sharing that. I find it so interesting. And I think judgment is something that all investors are constantly trying to gut check themselves against, and making sure that that stays clear. Yeah. Because ultimately, the only way you actually make money and do well in this business is not all the marketing and the fluff. It's like the returns and the truth.
That's right.
So I appreciate your gut check there. I did want to ask you about your Dragonfly website. You talk about backing crypto projects. And on the internet, you talk about projects. And most venture firms, especially for those of you listening who have pitched them or work at them, you talk about startups and businesses and companies. Yeah. But you guys have really leaned into this projects archetype and narrative. Talk to me about why. Why do you call it a project? What does that mean? What are the kinds of structures you like to invest in? I've done a little bit of my own homework, but I'd love for you to share with everyone why you guys back crypto projects, not crypto businesses.
Yes. So I'd say we back both crypto businesses and crypto projects. Projects is the more inclusive term. And now why do we use this inclusive term? So in crypto, there's basically two different categories of startups that you will see. One of them is building a traditional business like a Coinbase or, whatever, a crypto bank, a crypto custodian, a crypto trading platform. The other category is building a protocol. Now, if you're building a protocol, you might be building something like the next Bitcoin, the next Ethereum. If you're building something like this, then actually, I'm not necessarily going to be buying shares in Bitcoin or in Ethereum, right? Because Bitcoin and Ethereum don't have shares. They're tokens. They're just networks, and you buy ownership in the network. And if you have some ownership in that network, the equity, if there is a company, sometimes there is no corporate form, but if there is a corporate form, the corporate form itself is not really the thing you're investing into, even if it's the vessel through which these people are going to be employed and they're going to be working, but eventually this thing is going to become decentralized, and maybe a totally different set of people are going to be working on it in 5 years than the people who originally started the company. So that's why we use the term projects, because, building a startup is a project, I guess, but also building a protocol is a project. So crypto has kind of adopted this term as being the catch-all for everything that you think of as entrepreneurial in the crypto industry.
Anything being created.
Correct.
Anything. I find it very fascinating. And I think it's really cool when you think about returns potential. Like there's all these early investors when you speak to them. I know like Alexis Ohanian, for example, will talk about, he's invested in all these startups, businesses, having equity.
Yeah.
But the thing that really made it for him was his Ethereum investment, and so it's a nice diversification tool, if nothing else, as a firm to have those crazy protocol swings. Amazing. Okay, one of the last things I want to ask you about before our lightning round is this earn to give movement that you talk about. And in your bio, we mentioned it a couple times, this commitment to giving back. But also earn to give is about earning a lot to then give a lot. Yeah. So can you talk to me a little bit about how you first found out about this movement and sort of what your philosophy is on it as of today?
Yeah. So I was 21 when I quit playing poker professionally. And that's, a whole saga that I don't know if we have
People
time to
can
get
look
into.
it up online.
Yeah. And so when I quit poker, I really had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I dropped out of school. I dropped out of college because I was making so much money as a professional poker player. I think I was 19. And when I quit poker, although I had money, I was basically just a college dropout. I had no real skills. I had no idea how I was going to be a productive member of society. And one thing that I learned when I was a poker player is that, I knew all these guys who had made a lot of money at a young age, but they weren't happy. And I wasn't happy. And I learned very quickly that money doesn't make me happy. Apparently birthdays also don't.
Yeah, money and birthdays, things people usually love, but Haseeb
I know.
does not.
No, well, it's look. Obviously, money
things.
is extremely important.
Yeah.
But for me, I think money is important insofar as it buys you time and freedom. It buys you the ability to do other things that you actually want to do. But just having a lot of money in and of itself, I mean, it's one of the oldest lessons in history is that, some guy makes a bunch of money and then is unhappy and whatever. It's like didn't solve the problem. Exactly. Yeah. So I was thinking to myself, what do I want to do with my life? Because, clearly money is not the thing that drives me. But I am good at making money, or at least apparently, that's what I thought when I was a poker player. And so I came across the idea of earning to give. I think I must have been 22, 23 when I came across the idea. And the idea of earning to give is very simple, which is that, you can imagine if you want to do a bunch of good in the world, that maybe you go and, you go volunteer for the Red Cross and you go become a doctor, okay? And if you go become a doctor, maybe you save, 20 lives or something every year that you're working out in the field as a doctor, something like that, imagine. Now, the alternative to that is, of course, there are other people who could be doctors for the Red Cross. Red Cross just needs to hire them. And so if you go earn a lot of money in a high-income career and you donate that money to the Red Cross, and the Red Cross hires 2 doctors, then actually you've had more impact than you would have if you had been the one yourself doing the thing with your hands, right? And the thing that matters is not that you're the one with your hands doing the thing. The thing that matters is, does the thing happen?
And the highest quantity thing.
Exactly. Do people's lives actually change? Does the world actually get improved? And the argument by earning to give is that, look, if you're American, you speak good English, you're well educated, you're intelligent, you have access to one of the most incredible wealth-making machines that has ever existed in the history of the world, right? I mean, we talk a lot about wealth inequality in America without really appreciating that, America is about 5% of the world population. And anybody who's middle class in America is well above the 1% in the world. And if you're talking about, being upper middle class in America, you are like, 0.1%. To say nothing of people who are like really, truly wealthy. Yeah. And so that, the frame of earning to give is that, look, if you just, you don't have to make insane amounts of money, but just even making, a high earning career in America and donating that money to causes that can really have high impact in other parts of the world, you can end up having much more impact than you could if you were to go and try to do those things yourself directly. And that one, I mean, maybe I just have a very kind of calculating mind, as you can see. That made total sense to me, and it also, in a way, resonated with me because I'm like, okay, well, I think that's something that I'm actually pretty good at. I think, however my mind is constituted, however my my brain and my emotions are constituted, I think I'm really good at that kind of thing. But also, it feels like a much more meaningful way to earn money because, look, I don't have a nice car. I don't have like a super fancy lifestyle. I wouldn't even know what to do with it. I remember when I was a poker player, I was 19 and I bought like a PlayStation and a big screen TV, and I was kind of out of ideas.
What else? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like,
I don't. Dinner? I don't know.
Yeah. It's like, look, I mean, the place I like is down the street, and so that really resonated with me. And at that time I had, very little money because I'd given away my money as a poker player. But I left myself with $10,000 and decided that I was going to go try to earn a high income career in Silicon Valley.
I love it. And the rest is history. Here you are now.
History. That's right.
I think what's really cool about the Earn to Give movement that really resonates with me is this concept of authenticity. Like, there's so many ways to earn. Yeah. Especially now, the beauty of America too, the beauty of technology. Find the way that makes you maximally earn to then give a lot of it. But this idea that everyone has to be a doctor or a teacher or volunteer as like the best use of their skill sets, to me feels misaligned. It's like not optimizing human potential. Go find the thing that's like, you are the best person in the whole world to do that thing.
Yeah.
And then if that makes a bunch of money, then you can then give exponentially back. And I think
And
that
that's often
authenticity
true.
helps. Yeah.
That the thing you're going to make the most money at is the thing that you're actually the best at.
100%. It goes together. I love it. And what's your take on it now? Your earn to give. Where are you at? I know you said a third of are there causes that you're giving to actively? Are there
Yes.
areas you're focused on? Talk to me a little bit just about that piece.
Yeah. So I give every year. I've been doing that ever since I got my first job in the tech industry. This was, 10 years ago? No, more, 11 years ago. So I've been doing it for a while now. At this point, it's just like, one of the, I don't know, it's like giving tithing or something. It's not something I really think about so much anymore. It's just a part of my life. A lot of the money that I give is to international development, specifically around malaria prevention. Malaria is one of these things that's extremely kind of mundane, but is one of the largest killers everywhere in the world, especially in tropical regions. It's extremely cost effective to just be able to save people's lives from malaria deaths that are completely unnecessary deaths around the world, mostly in places that are just poor countries that Americans don't care about. And this is just one of the most obvious low-hanging fruit around the world. There's all sorts of other things like this that people can donate to. I also donate to animal welfare causes because, of course, I think one of the things that we're going to look back on in the next century is with tremendous moral embarrassment is factory farming and the scale of cruelty that we induce on animals and basically never think about it.
Yeah. You're vegetarian, is that right or no?
I've tried to be vegetarian.
Or you said paleo, I think.
I'm paleo, but I try to be responsible in the kind of meat that I eat. I try to avoid factory farm meat.
Yeah. When you watch one documentary, your life will change. I mean, I've watched many factory farming documentaries.
Are you vegetarian?
I grew up with vegans. Everyone in my house is a vegan but me, randomly. I'm conscious, like you.
Yeah,
Like I'm very conscious. I eat, like kosher chicken, for example, is much better and more expensive, but better. So, I find my ways, but yeah, I agree with you. I think that's something we're going to look back on.
No, I do consider it to be one of my major moral failings is that I'm not a vegetarian. I think you should be a vegetarian. I think I'm just not there.
I get it.
But that's why I'm very bullish on lab grown meat, is I think once that is mass market and good enough, because I think the reality is that it's both very deeply ingrained and it's also, for many people, it's a health thing. So, my wife, she was vegan for many, many, many years, and she had to switch back for health reasons to start eating meat.
A lot
again.
of people.
It's very unnatural.
Yeah.
Like you have to do a lot of supplementation to be a healthy vegan. Vegetarianism is more manageable, and obviously there's many cultures that are vegetarian.
Yeah.
Veganism is difficult.
Yeah, but I agree with you. There's a lot of really exciting innovations. They haven't taken off quite yet.
Yeah.
The stock's also not doing so great, but from an investment
it'll
standpoint,
it'll get there. It'll get there.
Have belief.
It'll get there.
If you work in venture or startups, you know the constant juggling act. Replying to messages from co-investors, founders, LPs, customers, and teammates, all hitting your personal number. I know this very well. We all hand out our cell, which means your EA can't help an iMessage, and important threads get buried. That's why I'm very excited about Quo, formerly OpenPhone. It's built for founders and investors like us who want communication that feels personal but stays organized. Quo gives you a dedicated business line on your existing cell phone. And if you already have a business number, you can bring it with you for free. Plus, you'll get call summaries, transcripts, and an AI voice agent called Sona that can answer and schedule when you're offline. We're actually cooking up something fun with the Quo team right now and using that same voice AI tech in a new way for our firm. More soon, but it's a great reminder that you can use voice AI to stay top of mind of your customers' needs. Quo is trusted by over 90,000 businesses and rated /1 on G2 for customer satisfaction. You can get 20% off your first 3 months at quo.com/trailblazers. That's quo.com/trailblazers. So I've actually used Gusto at 3 different companies, and every time it's been such a relief. It's simple, it's reliable, and my paycheck was always on time, no drama. And unlike the big clunky payroll systems out there, Gusto is online payroll and benefit software specifically built for small businesses. It's all-in-one, remote-friendly, and incredibly easy to use, so you can pay, hire, onboard, and support your team from anywhere. For smaller startups in particular, I have found that it's the most affordable and easy to set up option, and it's the one that we recommend to all of our startups at our firm. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/trailblazers and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/trailblazers. One more time, gusto.com/trailblazers. Amazing. Okay, well, let's do some rapid fire.
Let's do it.
I added a few crypto ones to start, and then we'll get into more generic ones.
Okay.
Okay, if you were not doing crypto, what would you be doing?
I would probably be doing something in AI. I mean, it's just clearly the way that crypto was 10 years ago when I first got into the space, where it's totally insane, Wild West, changing all the time. Nobody knows where it's going. That's clearly AI right now.
Well, there's a lot of interesting stuff at the intersection of those two, so hopefully you can spend some
true.
time there.
I do, yeah.
One belief about crypto you've changed your mind on recently.
Recently. It's funny you asked that because I think that a lot of the intersection of crypto and AI is completely chock full of bullshit right now.
It's like creating that path instead of getting to the path like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
People are trying to put pieces together.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, look, every time that there's a new hot trend, crypto finds a way to like shoehorn itself into that trend without actually knowing whether or not it quite makes sense yet. So I do think there will be an intersection between crypto and AI. I don't know that it's going to necessarily be a way to make a lot of money, but it almost certainly will exist because, of course, like these are two very important technologies. They're going to intersect. But yeah, I having spent a lot of time, especially toward the beginning of this year, on the crypto AI space, I think right now there's just a lot of bunk.
Okay, it's kind of a hot take. I like it. What's the best bet you've made ever outside of investing?
Outside of investing?
Yeah.
Ah, interesting.
And you can't say your wife.
Okay.
Because I'm sure that would be your answer. You gotta give something else.
Yeah. It's good. That's good. Best bet I ever made outside of investing. I mean, coming into the tech industry and learning how to code, I feel like was a very, very good bet. Now, I'm not a coder, right? Like I'm, an investor. I've been an investor for 10 years. But I only worked as a professional engineer for 1 year. I worked at Airbnb after I left the coding bootcamp that I took. But I think that has paid so many dividends over my career is just understanding technology.
And like the bare basics.
Yeah.
Bare minimum. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think more people could do that.
Yes.
Even just like a week-long thing, just to like get that more understanding. Book in hand or podcast in ears?
Podcast in ears.
Any favorites?
Like everybody, I've been listening to a lot of DoorCash. DoorCash is fantastic.
Did you listen to the Ilya episode?
I did. I listened to it a couple times. Ilya is very elusive. I'd say he's always he's got this like kind of pregnancy when he speaks about these big topics. You're just like, he knows, he sees something that other people don't see, but he can't quite put into words.
Yeah, and that's the kind of episode you need to listen to a few times to like really grasp it all. You know, because you're like, there's things I'm not picking up.
Yeah, that's right.
It's in my queue, so I'm glad you listened to it.
It's a good one.
Morning person or night owl?
Night owl. Very much night owl.
Okay, is it more you like to go to bed late or you like to wake up late? What's your?
I unfortunately I'm at the age now that I wake up at the same time no matter what, which is really bad.
Yeah.
I used to, if you sleep late, you wake up late. That doesn't. My brain doesn't do that anymore. So I don't know if it's because I work a lot or because I'm old, but definitely night owl. Like I naturally drift late.
Yeah, I get it. Cooking dinner or ordering in?
Cannot cook. So I order these like pre-made meals. There's like this lady who's a professional bodybuilder who like has her little home kitchen where she makes meals, and I just order the same thing, controlled macros, very clean, delicious. She's a hero.
Okay, that's my dream. If she has a cousin in New York City, you got to let me know because I need something like that.
I don't know that she does.
I know. If you hear, let me know.
We'll let you know.
That's the dream. VC or bootstrapping?
Depends on what you're building. Usually VC, but bootstrapping is also fine. I mean, if you can bootstrap. Depends on what you're trying to build. Yeah.
We hear some people give like creative answers like seed strapping, raise a little this and then don't do it anymore. Everyone gives something different. Networking dinner or big conference?
Definitely networking dinner. Big conferences. I mean, I go to a lot of big conferences, but I kind of love-hate conferences because they're just, it's funny because crypto really blew up around COVID. And I first came into the industry in 2017, 2018. And so the first couple of years, I was not super well known, but also crypto was just much smaller at that time. And it really blew up after COVID. And so, and I was writing, and I started a podcast and all this stuff. And so after COVID, things started opening back up again. People started doing conferences. It was like 21, 22. When I started going back to conferences, right, before COVID, crypto was in depths of a bear market. It was very quiet. Whenever you go to a conference, you just see like your old friends, and it's like, oh, you losers, you're all still, it's just us still here in the crypto industry. And so conferences were always like reunions, After that, I started to become much more well-known, and like crypto just became so much bigger that like conferences became huge. And my experience with conferences never felt the same after that, because it's like,
and everyone knows you too. Like,
yeah,
you're
exactly.
kind of walking through the crowd and everyone's like, hey, can we like chat? I want to pitch you something.
Yeah, exactly. And see, the thing is, here's what I've learned, and this is kind of I don't know if it's a humble brag or just like a, just whining.
Yeah.
But being known for being an investor, I've come to appreciate is like not the best thing to be known for. Because when people come up to you, like sometimes when people come up to me, they're just like, oh, I loved your writing. Or like, oh, I saw this thing that you posted. It was so great. I just want to tell you that. But most of the time when people come up to you, they want money. And that's actually not a really nice feeling. If like somebody comes up to you and they're like, hey, I want your money. Can I, and like, obviously if you're going to pitch me, like, okay, send me a deck, give me some time to like prepare. But like getting cornered in a hallway and just being pitched in your face when you're like walking somewhere is not just, word of advice for anybody who's out there. Like that's not the right setting in which to pitch somebody. But that's, you're going to have the people who are the most brazen are the people who are going to stop you in the hallway and like come up to you and pitch you. And so you just learn through experience of like, oh, okay, if somebody comes up to me, they're probably going to like pitch me in a hallway. And
you're already like,
you're just already
scared.
like, oh,
yeah,
geez. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's really lovely to have somebody come up to you and be like, hey.
It's so flattering.
Yeah.
But it's also like, okay, well, we want to just like chat about life and other things.
Yeah, exactly. And like, look, if we want to pitch, let's set up a time when
Separately.
like I'm in the mental space to like think about your startup, not while I'm like on my way to a meeting.
Yeah, or like late for the meeting.
Exactly. Or I'm like trying to eat lunch.
Yeah, exactly. It is interesting how that shifts.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine for you, especially because crypto is, everyone knows each other.
That's right.
What that's
it's
like.
A small universe.
Small universe. Hire slow or fire fast?
I would say both.
If you had to pick.
If I have to pick. Do I have to pick?
Have to pick.
Have to pick.
This game is pick one.
Oh, pick one. I'd say fire fast.
Okay, and why that versus hire slow?
Yeah. I mean, hire slow usually, but like if you find somebody that you're in love with or you just need to hire fast, then fuck it, hire fast.
Yeah.
Fire fast, I think, is more important. I think that's the more common mistake, the deeper mistake, right? Hiring quickly, if you hire the wrong person, you can mostly solve for it by like just, okay, well, let's reassign them. Let's like get them to do something else. Let's like not get in the way of the core path. But if somebody is like actively destructive to a company or is just actively slowing people down, and everybody knows somebody like this, letting go of that person, having a culture of we do not tolerate people who are actively destructive to our company or who are just assholes. That will do so much more for your culture than making sure that you never end up firing anyone.
Yeah. Well, there's also this concept that like hiring slow is just one person, but then if you fire someone who's been polluting everywhere, that they're affecting 3, 4, 5, 10 people.
That's
and
right.
It's got more exponential impacts.
Absolutely.
Being early or being right?
Being early or being right? Being right.
Mm-hmm. And why that answer?
Yeah. I mean, just being early to something that's wrong is not helpful, obviously.
You make no money and you look like a fool.
Yeah. I mean, why would you want to not be right? I mean,
but then you're eventually right, but you were just too early.
That's also just wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being early.
I feel like crypto, though, is one of those things where a lot of people were early, but they didn't strike it right. Or like they were in the ICO wave and they weren't when it was like.
Which is the same as being wrong.
Which is the same as being wrong.
Same as being wrong.
Okay.
If you buy the wrong thing, I mean, that's the thing. Look, there's a lot of people. I know so many people who are in crypto earlier than I am and didn't make money.
Mm-hmm.
Now you might think, how is that possible? That you could be in Bitcoin when Bitcoin was worth $1,000 and you didn't make money?
You don't hold.
The answer, yeah, exactly. Like there's so many things you can do besides holding. Everything that you can do, you're buying here, selling here, doing this. There's so many ways to lose money, except if you just sit there and you hold and you shut the hell up.
Yeah.
And you stop thinking about it and you just, that's it.
Everyone thinks
We're
it's always
guaranteed to make money.
A peak and it's the death and it's never going to get higher and it's never going to get lower and it always somehow does.
That's
and
right.
so I think you have to hold through it.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 more left. Never post on social media again and I'm going to extend this to never post another piece of writing again,
Ooh.
or never fundraise another dollar again.
Never fundraise another dollar.
Okay, what would the strategy be there? Would it be no more venture? Would it be self-funded venture? What's the...
You really make me think through
I'm
this?
making you think through.
Okay.
You can't just give an answer and then be done.
I thought that was rapid fire.
It is, but then when I find it interesting, I push.
All right, rapid fire, but then you like go in for the kill.
I do.
Okay.
I got to hear the answer,
Yeah,
the
all
rationale,
right.
even if it doesn't make sense.
Okay. So I mean, maybe crowdfunding, maybe just take money from my existing LPs, invest my own money. I don't know. There's like it's just such a terminus of unfreedom to be told you can never write in public again. Like, I am a writer, and like the reason why investing is interesting is because it's a conversation with the future. But if you can't actually take part in that conversation, you can only witness that conversation. That sucks. So no.
I love that. I think not enough investors think about writing as that.
Yeah.
I think that's really powerful. They think of it more as marketing versus this like conversation with people who are building the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Okay, last question. AI overhyped or underhyped?
That's a really tough question in this moment.
Yeah, today.
Yeah, today. I would say correctly hyped.
Right in the middle.
Hyped, yeah.
So we're going to opt out of an answer yet again.
Oh, come on. All right, fine. I'd say slightly
51%.
Slightly underhyped.
Ooh, there we go.
Slightly.
Just ever so slightly.
Ever so teensy underhyped.
Haseeb, thanks for being here. How can people learn more about you if they want to support you and Dragonfly? Shout out your stuff quickly. So they can support.
Just find me on Twitter. I'm at Haseeb, Hosseeb, or just Google my name. You'll find me pretty easily. Just Google Haseeb Crypto. You'll find me.
Yeah.
And read my stuff. We have a podcast that we do every week called The Chopping Block on the Unchained feed. So just look up Unchained. We talk about crypto. If you don't follow crypto, you're not going to understand anything we're talking about, but that's okay.
You can learn. Start somewhere.
You can learn. It's a great place to learn.
Awesome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Thanks. On Trailblazers, we're always talking about multiplying your impact, and that's exactly what Athena helps you do. Athena pairs you with a world-class executive assistant who becomes a true force multiplier for your business and your life. Working with my Athena assistant has been transformative. Gab was instrumental in raising Park Rangers Capital's fund in ways that I could have never imagined an assistant could contribute, from closing six-figure checks to identifying new LPs we should meet to matching my tone perfectly in follow-up emails. He's elevated my capacity as a founder by giving me more time to focus on the highest leverage work. Athena isn't just about scheduling meetings, it's about unlocking leverage. Hundreds of founders, investors, and executives trust Athena to free their time and scale their impact. Athena is offering our listeners $2,000 off for their first year of service and priority onboarding. And you want that, trust me, there's a very long wait list. When you're ready to multiply your impact and free up time for the things only you can do, go to athenago.me/Erica-Wenger. That's athenago.me/ERICA-WENGER. Thanks so much for listening to the Trailblazers podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. You can also support our work by sharing it with a friend or leaving a quick review. It helps more contrarian builders find us. For more on Park Rangers Capital and our community of elephant founders, head to parkrangerscap.com or find me online at Erica_Wenger. Until next time, keep trailblazing.